YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers Dino Fury Episode 15. This is the beginning of the debut of our Gold Ranger, sort of like a part 1 or a part .5, as it's very much about the lead into it, but it's also kind of a base episode as well, revolving around Ollie. Like, Ollie is the main focus again in terms of like the plot of the week. He's not coming off the greatest in these last 2 episodes, kind of coming off like a D-bag. And this week's, I always say that because it's just so natural, even though I just had the other episode yesterday. But this premise is basically about him thinking new tech is always better. He's basically like, new is always better. Which is true. Like, let's not make any mistake here. Like, the way he was treating his friends and going about this was wrong. But he's right. New is always better. That is the one rule. And new is always better is the oldest rule, which makes it the best. He's like, oh yeah, I gotta get these new headphones, so I forgot to do something for Chase. For Javi. Later in the episode too, he's giving this interview about these strange storms because he's like, my mom's way too busy. She's also wearing an unnecessary hat, just like your dad. And so she's really busy wearing this headwear. And so he does the interview instead, but he screws it up because he gets caught up in this guess the number of jelly beans game to win this new laptop, and like his obsession with new tech basically gets in his own way. But that storm we're talking about is kind of the other main plot. Like, that's kind of the main lesson plot, but the main plot going on is that there's this mysterious storm around Blue Valley because Eclipso is out. Wrong show. Mysterious storm around the lake that the prism went into, and they draw that connection from the prism from the previous episode when it was looking for something. And there's mysterious stuff going on with it, and the Rangers and the villains are trying to figure it out. And it turns out that whole computer thing was a villain plot. It was Slither disguising himself so that they could basically have a corrupted computer to lead them to the energy source that they were looking for. And Ollie realizes he done forked up, and the villains show up and they pull this like tube out of the water, and a mysterious figure arrives out of it. And when the Rangers are fighting the monster of the week, all of a sudden enter our Gold Ranger, who shows up, and we get his intro fight. That's how we kind of get the intro for him. You know, we kind of foreshadow it. I like that we foreshadowed it way back, but unless you were thinking about it or were thinking about Ryu Soldier, you didn't really know. And I like that they set that up then, and then even now it's kind of a slow burn into it. And, you know, I guess if you're someone that doesn't follow the fandom stuff of Ryu Soldier, wouldn't necessarily know that this was coming. And I like the way they handled that, and the way the mysterious figure rises up out, and we get our kind of cool fight with the Gold Ranger, like introing the way he looks and the armor and stuff. Although there's this weird disconnect where it doesn't show him summoning the armor. I don't know if that was just the way it was aired. I'm not sure. Kind of the cool fight scene where you get introed into the 6th Ranger, but he's kind of a mystery because you don't know who he is. Again, obviously, if you're in the fandom and you saw all the press releases, you know who he's going to be and all this stuff. But I imagine if this came out like in the 90s when we watched it, and you didn't know all this information, it would be more mysterious. Or if you're a younger viewer or a viewer that's not all up in the fandom stuff, you get the kind of cool mysterious fight. And then at the end, when they go, so like, thanks, Yellow Ranger, I mean Gold, because his suit's like, you know, that pale color. And he says, hey, Zato, and then he leaves. And Zato's like clearly shook, and I'm sorry, I just used the word shook. And he takes the Sporks Beast out, and not out. He's like, that Sporks Beast? No, he just takes the Sporks Beast and leaves, and it's just kind of weird. And then you end on kind of a funny blowing gum bit or whatever. But what was interesting about this to me is that the Gold Ranger, again, even though we know who he is, the Gold Ranger intro fight and sort of mysterious who is this guy, other than the fact that he knew Zato, reminded me a little bit of the debut of the original Gold Ranger and Zeo, just because like the whole vibe and set piece of it reminded me of that, with the regular team fighting and then, you know, not having the greatest time, and then all of a sudden this mysterious Gold Ranger arrives. And then for whatever reason, the scene where the Gold Ranger and Zato meet again with the team in between them reminded me of the first time Antonio and Jaden re-met, and he's like, I've been waiting for some action. And then he's like, it was a little awkward, but it just reminded me of both of those. I don't know how much of it was intentional, but I kind of liked that it echoed both of those. And overall, I thought it was a solid episode. I like the way they've been introducing the Gold Ranger. Like I said, I like that they set it up way back. I like that this isn't kind of what Sentai's been doing recently in a lot of ways, where you just intro everything in one episode, be like, okay, here's everything, here's his Megazord, here's his works, how his biography works, and just go buy the toys. I like that it's a little bit slow build-up. I like that we waited a little bit to introduce him, and I just like everything about the way he was introduced in this episode is kind of like, this wasn't his official debut, but it was a good, exciting part 1 of his debut. As far as everything else in the episode goes, with the lesson and stuff like that, because the lesson basically Ollie was like, I need to focus more on what's important than the new tech. It was a kind of a weird way to approach a lesson of the week. The only thing that I didn't really like about it is it felt like one of those moments where this specific character trait was either brought up or dialed up to 11 just for the sake of the episode. And that always bothered me because it feels like a little bit out of character. Like, Ollie can be a little bit like this, as we saw last episode, where he can get a little bit, cocky and ahead of himself, and, that gets in his way. But it just felt like this was only happening for the sake of the lesson, and I preferred it to feel more natural. Kind of like in Dino Thunder, how Connor was a little bit selfish, and that was like his character trait throughout the whole show. So you got to see him slowly become better, and it wasn't, at least that I remember, there wasn't like one specific episode where he all of a sudden was like a douche for one reason, just to teach a lesson. And that kind of bothers me because it makes it feel unnatural and it makes the characters feel a little bit inconsistent. Also, as a side note though, even though I'm not a fan of Slither's antics, partly because I just didn't like Weisel, again, the villain plots have been really smart this year, and I think that they've been really making good use of Slither's abilities to trick the Rangers in various ways. Although that being said, I feel like the Rangers need to have a conversation about how to be on the lookout for Slither, because I feel like they've been fooled by him 3 times now, and all of a sudden now I'm getting Team Rocket flashbacks. Like, Team Rocket's like, oh, well, I turn my hat like this, they can't recognize me. Oh, who's that, Vendor? It's me, James! No way! Team Rocket! But I feel like they need to figure out a way to get around Slither's schemes, because they know full well this guy can transform, and they keep getting fooled by him in one way or the other. But overall, solid episode. I would give this one a 3 out of 5 again. I'm looking forward to seeing the English version of Ion's full debut, because I know the spoilers, and it's really cool stuff in it. I'm looking forward to see it play out in front of me. But if you guys watched this episode, what did you think of the start of the Gold Rangers debut? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for all my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.